Hi, I'm Kelly from the COPS team. Today, we step into Florence's childhood, moments that seemingly ordinary then, but cast long shadows later. Small ruptures, quiet fears, and the first cracks in a young heart. Now, let's watch.
Hi, I'm Florence, and before I will share with you all my life story, I'll probably share a bit of how I get into this community of broken spirit. I shifted over to my mom's place somewhere in 2019, and I have a friend from China. When she knew that I shifted over, she has been asking me for over about a year. She said, she called me by my Chinese name, and she said, Xiu Hui, you are a worshiper. There's this group of worshiper that I knew that stay so near your mom's place, and that you should actually join them. And when she told me about it, I didn't feel led to, but it was in my heart. And shortly after that, COVID started in 2020, where church closes, worship closes, and where there's a COVID restriction even in Singapore. And somewhere, somehow, 2020, near to October, after COVID started, I felt like to go over and take a look and join them. And that was how I started getting to know about COPS. And from then on, I started worshiping with them till now. Now I'd like to share a bit about my own life story. I grew up in a relatively poor family of 12. I have a total of 12 siblings. That's a huge extended family in my time. There's 7 guys and 5 girls. I have a youngest brothers, and I'm one of the youngest girls. I'm the 11 in the family. Growing up in this family, I heard a lot of stories about my parents because we have so many siblings and I hardly see my parents. My dad and mom are actually born in China, and my mom shared her life story that she was actually born in China. And because also she came from a very poor family, when her grandma was very sick, they had no money for her medical bill, and they have to sold her away to Singapore. And when she was in Singapore, she was further sold to a Catholic family where she wasn't treated well in this family. And how later on she was matchmade to marry my father. My father also had a big family of 8 siblings with 5 male and 3 female. And my mom had only one foster brother. So hearing all the stories about my parents was a challenge for me as well, because it was so messy, my family of 12. And my dad was, I never knew much about my dad. What I heard was always story told by my sibling about my father or my mom. My dad and mom used to fight. They quarrel a lot. And my dad was violent. He was a womanizer. He gambled. And he used to beat up a lot of my brothers so violently. This is what I always heard from my sibling. And hearing that my father really frightened and chickened me out, that I really dare to go near my father. And I always hear a lot of story of what my mom told about my father because she was so bitter. Being child that was so she was suffering so much rejection herself. And when she was married into my dad, how badly my dad had treated her, and all this add on to her bitterness. And there's so much of bitterness when my dad bring women's back, womanizing, and she single-handedly kind of like bring the 12 of us up by herself. So mom was very hardworking. She never gave up on any one of us. She worked day and night. I remember very vividly when I was very young, she would get up so early to work, and then I hardly see her at home. So that was my family. where I used to hear so much about my dad and my mom. I was born when my mom was in her old age as well. And my mom shared with me that because I was like almost 11, going through so much herself, she never even want another child. All the hardship that she's going through, financially, physically, emotionally, every bit of it. She tried very hard to abort me. So she told me, actually, she took medication. She took a lot of medication to abort me. And no matter how she tried to abort me, somehow I was sustained. My mom told me most of us actually delivered at home. We actually were staying in the kampong in Singapore. Only me and my brother was delivered in a hospital. You can imagine if I did not deliver in hospital, I wouldn't be around today. Because what happened was when my mom told me when I was delivered, I came out actually black, and I did not even cry. So because that was medical help, that's how I'm here today. So growing up, with all the rejection I had, even in the womb, I came up a really cried baby. I think I cried a lot. I think in my family, I cried the most. I think it was tormenting for my mom and my family. I cried for attention. I cried. I wailed. It was so horrendous for my mom. And I remember very vividly when I was young, I cried so much that my brother, they would kick me, they would beat me up. And that added even more to my fear and to my attention and my rejection spirit that I needed that love. So with that, from young, I remember my mom was always working. I was always left alone. Nobody would take care of me. I'll be running around, playing by myself, in the kampong. Barely really remember what I eat. My mom will boil a big kettle of coffee, black coffee. I will drink coffee in the bottle as my meal. Recent years back, I even remember when I was young, I think I was even sexually molested. It wasn't clear, but I kind of remember image that I might be also sexually molested because there's no one to protect me. And I was traumatized, didn't even know that was actually it was molesting. So all this was how I grew up in my kampong years. I never get a chance to study because from our kampong, we have to walk far a distance to the kindergarten. All my siblings, my sister has to walk by themselves, and some of them are actually bitten by dogs. And with that, my mom stopped some of my siblings from going to school. Even myself, I never get a chance because nobody will bring me to school. And my mom was also afraid that I would be beaten up by the dogs. Once in a while, I have an elder sister who was married, and she will bring me over to help my mom to her house, where I have a niece which was barely 2 years younger than me. They were staying in a housing development board, HDB flat. And that was where I will play with her as my childhood. And those are beautiful memories. So can you imagine my family? There was a year where my elder sister was pregnant, my sister-in-law was pregnant, and my mom was pregnant. So it was extended family. So my nieces, my brother, and my nephew, they are all of the same age. So when I was about almost 7 years old, we shifted over to HDB flat. And then in those years, my mom was also busy working. I hardly get to see my parents. And I also remember those years when I grew up, it was scary for me because mom wasn't around, dad wasn't around, and we all stayed in a 4-room HDB flat, sharing rooms with sibling sisters. We quarrel also sometimes because different character. We fight. And I also remember once when parents wasn't around and my brother and sister, they were fighting so badly. I was trying so hard to protect my sister, but my brother just dashed in.
The past doesn't stay in the past. It shapes what comes next. In the next episode, those early wounds becomes warning. I will see you in the next episode.